As you may know from some of my videos, I'm a big fan of tarot decks. I like the art, I like the symbology, I don't believe in the magic that some people associated with it. I see it more as a form of looking at a Rorschach ink blot and finding your own meaning in it. To me, rather than some supernatural power that looks into the future, the tarot deck is about the archetypes of our minds that we're able to maybe access by interpreting a spread of tarot cards. Now, if it's about the way our mind works, the way we're wired, the way we construct meaning around complex symbols, then the tarot decks should be about the past as well as about the future. We think about, again, those ancient symbols, which are not that ancient, mainly date from the 16th century. And I'm European, so to us, 16th century, just a couple of years ago. We think about the past, but of course, if they are the way they have to do with the way our brain is wired, then they also have to do with the future. They also have to do with the way we will be, not just the way we have been. And I like this deck of cards here, the Next World Tarot by Cristy CHARIOT, that plays around that idea, not just around the idea of what has been, but a tarot for the future. A tarot maybe for a society that does not even exist quite yet. It is a tarot deck that makes inclusion its main, I would say, its main general idea around which then the symbology is built. It's a modern deck, again, even maybe a future deck that clearly has to do with including a large range of ethnicities, of religious positions, gender identities, sexual orientation. It's about the wonderful, beautiful, complicated, immense variety of society and of when you put together a lot of individuals without reducing their individualities. The result may be a little chaotic, but again, then everybody can be themselves and everybody can be okay with other people being themselves. And to me, that's funny. There's almost, again, an extra symbolic value in the fact that this collection of different types from different religious, cultures, ethnicities, gender identities, and orientations, they're not in a book in which the order is fixed, but in a tarot deck. You can shuffle them and you create more and more micro-societies. Now, this person can be next to someone else, and then next to someone else, and everybody can end up being next to everybody else, and that is just fine. The format, the technology of the card, in a sense, emphasizes the message of inclusivity that the deck seems to revolve around. You have a nice large book that comes with it that explains the process and the symbolic meaning that the author associated with the cards. And then we have the cards themselves. Let's start from the major symbols. We have the Fool, as usual. The Fool is the traveler that has not quite started yet, does not know much, is the pilgrim that will go across the deck, or at least through the major symbols, and possibly will become part of this journey of self-discovery. The Fool is you, the Fool is me, the Fool is us, and that's perfectly fine. And so we have somebody here who is getting ready to embark on the journey, but will this person actually take the journey? We don't know yet. The Magician, as you can see, again, very different from the white dude that you see in Renaissance decks. And if it's about the future, if it's about the present, then we can include people that, yes, people that the authors of tarot decks in the Renaissance would not have considered necessarily, their friends would not have considered necessarily worthy of great respect. But now we are past, and now a person who is reading feminist theory while also thinking about the future, and now the mysterious cup, the potion, has become a coffee cup, which really is the magical potion of our modern times. Then we have references to non-white, non-Western ethnicity and culture. Really fascinating to me, because, you know, if it was like a magician doing magic and being in contact with fantasy worlds, that wouldn't be as, that would be, that's what you expect. But now we have somebody that comes from another world, a world that for many Westerners, observers, is as foreign as Middle Earth or Tatooine. So to me, that's fascinating, that the otherness of other cultures has been turned into the magical otherness of the tarot decks. The High Priestess, yes, there is a strong presence of female figures more than in the traditional tarot decks. Many figures than in tarot decks traditionally were male figures, such as, say, the Emperor or the Pope, are simply not here, and they're being replaced with female figures. And again, that's why not? And you can see also a large variety of body types. No, the Hollywood body type is not the only one that matters. Incidentally, to me, that makes sense because, say, if you look at 17th century paintings, then the body type that was considered, the most beautiful body type was more similar to this one than to this one, or to what you see in most Hollywood movies, because body standards of beauty are constructed, and so here we're given the opportunity to see different types and to find beauty and grace in a lot of different things. So we get to question, well, why only one type of body should be acknowledged. The lovers, traditionally in the tarot deck, yeah, they are two heterosexual people, but we know that there are many shapes and kinds of love, and so now we have that inclusion. The Chariot, traditionally, you see the Chariot, I guess you don't have much of that in the present world. Also, you don't have a lot of going around with baby elephants, I know that. So this is one that veers more toward, I would say, pure fantasy, almost sci-fi. Look at the beautiful, surreal landscape. Strength. And I grow plants as a hobby. Yes, it takes some strength, not necessarily to spray that little tiny thing. It's more like a moral strength. The Hermit, that's a beautiful rendition of, like, yeah, today's hermits, you don't need to go on a mountain. All you need to do is to be obsessed with your technology to become a hermit. Very powerful. Wheel of Fortune, very, again, fantasy. Justice, which is a very important one, which is also the one that we have on the cover, and Justice for All. Don't we believe, at least many of us, in Justice for All? Then the people that you see here that are not as represented as often in art, in media, in fiction, well, they deserve justice as much as everybody else. And I think that really carries that makes the point correctly. Death is turned into, well, acro, into aerial performances, so that's a little unusual. If you follow my reviews, although you know that I like... Oh, no, sorry, of course, that was not Death. This is the Hangman. So I got distracted because this is Death. I don't know I'll be able to tell if not because of this, but it's a nice, interesting situation. Also, this big creature looks like the ones that are in my backyard and are always attacking my plants. So that's a little too close home, maybe. Temperance is about, well, not just like pouring, I get the poisonous drink instead of putting it in your body. The Devil, I guess, is unrestrained greed, obsession with media, people fighting against each other instead of getting together against what really matters, dark powers that control us. That's a really gloomy and dark picture, and that makes sense. Revolution. Defend the sacred. See, revolution is about change, but what is revolution is, in fact, about saving, protecting something when everything else is changing. That and also is revolution. Which, by the way, if I am correct, in the original, this replaces the original Tower, which also was about change in the traditional tarot deck. The Star, the Moon, really beautiful, meditative. The Sun, again, just nice and beautiful. And the Judgment, that's somewhat mysterious, but the interpretation, which is as good as yours, because the point of tarot decks is precisely interpretation. The Judgment is this a political assembly? Is when people come together to fight for a cause, when people, yes, they judge their politicians, they judge the structure of power around them. And again, that's a very secular, that's a very powerful, very practical way for us to manifest our judgment. Of course, in traditional decks, this is the final judgment. This is the divine judgment that brings the end to our current world and unlocks, to use a video game terms, or brings to being the world as the final perfect manifestation of the universe in balance, the balance of the force and all that. And this somewhat androgynous figure probably represents the unity of opposite. And now just for the other cards, I'll go a little faster. Feel free to pause at any time. I don't want this video to last for an hour, and then you wouldn't watch it anyways. And that's okay. But if you do, then you got the full spread. You got the full spread in this video. Just feel free to pause at any time. And you see, by the way, how the traditional symbols here, the wands, are still integrated, sometimes in a subtle way. The 4 wands, the wands are right there. Sometimes, in fact, so subtle and clever that I may have just missed what the traditional symbol is, but the overall thing is still pretty powerful. And so the wands may be trees, maybe sometimes they look like golf clubs, sometimes they look different things, but you do have the shape, and you sometimes little sticks. So there really is, on one hand, yes, you have characters that you've never seen before in tarot decks, but then at the same time, you still have that connection with the traditional symbols. Here we have the pentacles, so that traditionally have to do, yes, with metal, with stone, with coins, and here the 2 of pentacles. This is rendered more freely as circular shapes. So is the 4 of pentacles. Is that one? I guess it could be also an 8 of pentacles. So I like that in each card, I don't know where the pentacles are going to be next, what is going to embody them. And again, I haven't counted all the pentacles everywhere, and sometimes I don't know that I can find them, like in this case, but I still like the art, even though sometimes I'm a little confused. This seems like an image from a Fellini movie. And the Queen of Pentacles, again, probably not the person that you expect to be the Queen of Pentacles. But what if the person lives and identifies as the Queen of Pentacles? Or the King of Pentacles? See, sometimes just almost the interference between what you see here and the traditional symbols that you expect is telling us so much more, is opening the way to interpretations. Swords can get a little darker, can get a little more sometimes in some of those other cards, sort of like almost post-apocalyptic, Mad Maxy. But the swords are often a symbol of violence, at least a symbol of change. This is pretty impressive because among the future things that we know will happen is the zombie apocalypse, and maybe swords will help us against those. If it's about the next world, it has to take into account the zombie apocalypse and the arrival of the Dark Lord Cthulhu, because those things will totally happen, we know that. Yeah, so sort of like a Frida Kahlo type of vibe. So the art is just colorful, beautiful. I like the color palette. I like, of course, again, the political message, but it's not just that. I mean, if I could draw a deck with the same political message, or almost, and it would be terrible because I don't know how to draw. The art can definitely be enjoying itself. The quality of the colors, so the shape, the sense of composition that you have makes this a really enjoyable work of art. On top of that, you have the creativity, you have the symbology, and again, the overall political message, which I find to be very strong, very powerful. Queen of Cups and King of Cups. And so here we go. Here you have it. The Next World Tarot. Not for everybody, because it's a very political deck, and so some of you will not agree with the politics, and so, well, you don't have to buy it. Nobody will force you to. But for those that want to maybe challenge themselves, to have this broader perspective, to embrace the variety and richness and messiness of a society where everybody can be whatever they are and they aspire to be, well, then you have a tarot deck that does not depict the world, because it may not unfortunately exist yet, but it may allow you to peek into the next world. For some of you, this would be the most threatening, the most terrible thing. For some of us, it's just the way we hope the world one day will be. A world where, again, everybody can be themselves. And this is my review for Next World Tarot.